Turning to North Africa, as Libya marks 5 years since the fall of former leader Moammar Gadhafi, it is facing two huge problems. One of the struggle to forge a single national government. The other is the presence of the terrorist group, the Islamic State. We get details from VOA's Jeffrey Young.
5 years ago, in February 2011, Libyan dictator Moammar Gadhafi was driven from office in an open revolt. 9 months later, he was captured and killed near Sirte, the city where he was born. With Gadhafi gone, people exploded in jubilation. But as Libyans celebrate the 5th anniversary of Gadhafi's downfall, the North African nation is arguably in worse shape than when he was in power. The state and outside negotiators, including the United Nations, are struggling to forge a single government out of two post-Gadhafi regimes, one in the traditional capital, Tripoli, the other in Benghazi to the east. But between the two capitals centered in Sirte lies Libya's gravest danger. Daesh, also known as ISIS and ISIL. While Libya's two rival governments struggled over which would rule, Daesh moved in and took over Sirte, turning it into a base of terrorist operations with tentacles across the country. U.S. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper described the chaos in Libya in testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee.
In Libya, despite the December agreement to form a new government and national accord, establishing authority and security across the country will be difficult at best, with hundreds of militia groups operating throughout the country.
Daesh controls the streets of Sirte. This video they produced shows how they impose their severe rules and punishments at gunpoint. People are stopped and searched whenever and for whatever reason. The point and purpose of this Daesh video is to make people fear them. Disobeying Daesh means punishment. For some infractions, a whipping. But for others, such as these two men accused of practicing so-called sorcery, Daesh uses their public execution to make it clear that the blade is the price paid for not obeying their medieval rules. As in Iraq and Syria, Daesh is interested in controlling the oil. Libya's pipelines and oil terminals are the focus of attacks by these terrorists, who need the revenue that selling oil provides to pay its fighters and establish an administration based on the ancient Muslim caliphates. The director of Libya's National Oil Corporation, Mustafa Sanalia, is quoted by Reuters as saying the country's oil assets are likely to suffer more attacks unless the long-awaited Libyan National Unity government gets in place and ready to fight back. The importance of a strong single government in Libya mounting a fight against Daesh is underscored by U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesman Mark Toner.
Once a new Libyan government is fully in place, we want to work with that government and with Libyan security forces in order to help them develop the capabilities to carry out the fight against ISIL in their own territory.
Meanwhile, a U.S.-led coalition isn't waiting for a new Libyan government to mount that fight. On February 19th, a U.S. airstrike targeted a Daesh training camp near the western Libyan city of Sabratha. The Pentagon says along with dozens of militants killed, the airstrike targeted a Tunisian Daesh official named Noureddin Chouchan, who Tunisian authorities suspect was behind a deadly attack on the Bardo Museum in Tunis in March 2015. The New York Times says U.S. intelligence analysts put the number of Daesh terrorists in Libya at some 6,500, with more arriving every day. And Daesh claims it has forged links with other terrorists in Africa, including Nigeria's Boko Haram. The UN's envoy to Libya, Martin Kobler, says there is no time to waste in the fight against Daesh.
Every day lost in the political dialogue and in the political process is a day of gain for the expansion of Daesh.
Well, for more insight on Libya's struggle, Jeffrey Young joins us in the studio. Hello, Jeffrey. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, so two major issues here. First, let's talk about the unity government. It's taken forever to form.
It was in December that an agreement was reached. A United Nations brokered agreement was reached for the two different governments, one in Benghazi, the other one in Tripoli, to merge and form a single unity government. Then we get into the process of, well, who from your side is acceptable and who from your side is acceptable. And there was nothing but back and forth like a tennis match. On the 24th, just a couple of days ago, Martin Kobler, who we just saw in this piece, the UN envoy to Libya, pleaded again and said, both sides, please. They finally came up with 18 cabinet ministers, and what Kobler is simply saying, now that you know who your ministers are going to be, can't you shake hands? Can't you get this done?
Now, the other threat that Africa is facing, actually, sub-Saharan Africa, is a Daesh. Feeling a little pressure in Libya may make some inroads southwards, right?
Obviously, because you're looking at the Sahara Desert, and it's an open space. So if you pressure Daesh in Libya, it's easy for them to just go south. And they're going south anyway. There are credible reports that are out right now that say that Daesh is indeed on the border with Niger and Chad, and that they are connecting with Boko Haram.
Very dangerous. Very briefly, talk about the French special ops there in Libya and the Sahel region. How effective?
There's a number of different operations that go on in a situation like this, and some of it is public, like the U.S. airstrike that happened on February the 19th. But French Special Ops is working on the Benghazi side to train people on Libya's people so that they can fight. And also, French Special Ops, according to credible reports, are also involved down in the Sahel with Chad and Niger.
Jeffrey, thank you for your reporting and your insights. Well, Jeffrey Young, Voice of America, and reporting there excellently on the situation in Libya.